In this video, I'm going to be talking about everything that you need to know about web design budgeting. We're going to cover the basics of web design, why budgeting matters, what makes pricing fluctuate, the different pricing models, expectations, and differences of a DIY versus professional doing your website. And if you stick around till the end, I'm going to be sharing with you some very simple tips to creating a very simple website without breaking the bank. By the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Emmanuel and I am the founder and kind of chief talking head guy over here at Square One Group. But really our mission is to help solopreneurs scale their business using systems. All right, let's dive into the good stuff. Now, the first thing I want to bring up is this thing that I heard called Jacob's Law. The way it works is that familiarity breeds intuition. And when we're talking about a website's user experience or its design, having a design that has clear calls to action buttons, like has a straightforward menu and layout, and where you can quickly understand how to access information, creates this intuition for customers that will inevitably build or breed some trust and make them feel like, oh, this is a website that I've actually been on before. So that said, things like color, photography, fonts, and everything in between are really, really important when it comes to designing your website. These main elements, they really capture the customer's attention and ultimately turn these leads that visit your website into eventual clients. Okay, now that you got the basic idea of what a website design is supposed to be, then now let's talk a little bit more about budgeting. It is the biggest challenge to bring out 100% of your vision. You see, a well-planned budget makes sure that your website's goals are in line really with your resources. So there's this basic rule of thumb as it comes to, creating a website or any type of service that you need for your business. You can have either speed, quality, and price. But the rule is you can only pick two of the three. So that said, making a website can cost different amounts of money for a bunch of different reasons. And really the main and kind of biggest reason is, what do you want your website to do? Now, if you want something simple, like a place for you to write blog posts or share stories or, post pictures, then it probably is not going to cost you a lot. But adding more complexities and complex features like an e-commerce store, or maybe some automations, or maybe a personalized user experience, those definitely increase the budget. Another big piece that also jacks up the price is how unique you want your website to look. Now, if you're okay with your website looking kind of like every other person's website out there, it's not really going to cost much. However, the more custom you want, obviously the price does go up. That said, there are really three things that affect the cost of, you creating your website. It's the complexity, the functionality, and the customization. And really the bottom line is the cost of making a website is really largely determined by how hard it is to create. You see, most of the time, it costs less to create a website that has a very simple layout and very basic functions. But the more complex a website grows, the more you're going to need someone's expertise, design knowledge, and of course their time. And when I'm talking about complex websites, I'm specifically talking about websites with, unique graphics or motion graphics or advanced features or maybe complicated navigation structures, like with a bunch of pages. Now, because of this, companies that want a really unique high-tech online image, they really should be expecting to pay more for, the design of their website. Not to mention, with regards to pricing, a website's budget also changes based off of what you need it to do. So if you have a website that you just want to share information about who you are and what you sell or maybe what services you provide, then something as simple as a Wix or Squarespace website or even a WordPress website will get you a long way, and they really don't cost much. That said, these sites are pretty basic and they don't let visitors do very much aside from just read basic information, and they have a very simple maybe checkout process. Now, as you scale up to something a little bit more complex, maybe it's like an e-commerce website like Shopify or WooCommerce, for example. Now, these are completely different stories. These websites, they handle a lot of pages and a lot more functionality. They essentially need a catalog in order for you to upload all of your products. They need shopping carts and obviously a safe and secure way to pay. Now, websites like these, they do take quite a bit more time to set up because there's a lot of moving parts. So you definitely are going to be needing to hire someone with a little bit more expertise. And obviously that means more expensive. Now, if you're okay with using a basic template, which is basically a pre-made design that you can tweak a little, then you're obviously going to be spending a lot less. But if you want a website that's going to be totally unique with a bunch of movement and a really, really unique interface, then I'd recommend obviously going with a custom design. Templates just won't work for you. And this means building your website from scratch so that it fits exactly what you want in terms of its look and how it works. And obviously, this is pricier because it's going to take a lot more time and, again, more expertise to do something like this. But the payoff of having a website that is uniquely yours, that reflects a personality, it's massive. Now, having said all this, the next thing that you need to consider are the different pricing models as it pertains to building out a website. Like, for instance, hiring a web designer that charges you hourly versus flat rate. Now, for web designers and developers that are compensated on an hourly basis, their pay is reflective of the amount of time they dedicate to a particular project. Now, this approach tends to be a lot more suitable for web design projects if they involve a lot of time, because the project scope or your vision of your website isn't very clear from the very beginning. Now, conversely, project-based pricing offers just a straightforward understanding of what the total cost is to build out a website right off the bat. Now, this model, it's perfect for projects that have a well-defined scope and very minimal changes that are going to be required for the future. And I should also add, a lot of business owners or a lot of businesses prefer like fixed pricing simply because it's a lot easier to plan for budgeting because it's simplified numbers and you can align really your budget with the initial expectations of what you're trying to get done for a website. Now, aside from the hourly versus fixed, there are additional fees or charges that you're going to have to be considering after you get this website launched, specifically as it pertains to maintenance and hosting. First of all, hosting services, this is what you need to keep your website online. You're going to need to be paying this in addition or on top of whoever's designing your website. And this is typically some sort of monthly fee. Now, in terms of maintenance, some web designers, they like to hire or charge you a retainer to hire them on a recurring basis so that they can just maintain the updates to the website or your website whenever you need it to get done. Or if you don't do something like this, typically what they'll do is they'll just bill you hourly. But it is definitely another fee that you have to consider when building out a website. So why are all of these little factors in terms of budgeting and pricing important? Well, you see, for a successful collaboration between you and your business and whichever web designer you decide to hire, it's a must to understand how all of these different pricing structures work and how costs are allocated. So you make sure that both you and your contractor have clear expectations right from the beginning. It really prevents any misunderstandings and also makes sure that your budget stays aligned with the project goals and you definitely don't go over budget. By the way, if you need help building out your website, I just want to give you the heads up. It's something that we love to do. It's something that we're pretty good at. So I'm going to leave a link to book a quick 10-minute brainstorm session right under this video. Happy to chat with you, see what you're trying to build and see if we can help you out. Okay, the next thing I want to chat about is sticking to your budget while planning your website. This really means knowing what you can and cannot have based on the resources you have available. You've got to understand how the amount you can spend will decide or dictate how your website looks and works. So if you plan carefully and really think about what you need your website to do, you can set clear goals really without breaking the bank. Basically, your wants and needs list is really weighing out what you need now versus what you can want and pay for later. That said, I do want to preface this by saying opting for cheaper solutions right out of the gate might be tempting, especially on a tight budget, but you have to think critically about this. These decisions will impact your site's future performance and scalability. And when you understand the different trade-offs between different design choices, it's key to understanding your strategic planning for your budgeting. Because bottom line is you're really weighing out immediate savings versus future gains. A well thought out, flexible website might require a large upfront investment, but if you prioritize scalability, this approach minimizes the need for any costly revamps down the line. This actually reminds me of a story of a website that we built. It was for a school. And the initial version of the school website was only scalable to a certain amount of students. But at a certain amount, the website would essentially break. Like it couldn't handle the capacity. And so what ended up happening was this school ended up having to revamp the entire website, and it ended up costing a heck of a lot more money further down the road because the website just couldn't handle the capacity of students coming in. That said, in the transition from the old website to the new website, it was a mess. All of their students and all the users were really confused, and it was like this massive pain in, the rollout. That said, considering scalability in the beginning would have saved a world of headache and a heck of a lot more efficiency. All right, moving on. There are platforms that give you the complete freedom to build your website yourself. And these builders, they're really for the not so tech savvy people to create websites really just using templates. Now, I should also add that this sounds tempting to do because it is cheap, but it's still important to think about the long-term scalability of your site. After all, web design, your website, it's not, a check in a box from a list. It's not a one-off task. Websites are never finished. They're always evolving. And a web design made by specialists like qualified designers and developers can give you way more customization and knowledge really than these DIY kind of drag and drop platforms. But obviously the cost is going to be higher, but it may be more helpful for you in the long run. That's simply because professional designers really understand user experience, branding, and industry trends. So they know how to create a website that not only looks great, but is fast. But the bottom line is you have to understand what your goals are for this website. If someone's just going to be reading through it, hey, just set up one of those plug and play websites. But if you need this website to do a bunch more than just reading some information, maybe it might be a good idea to have a conversation with a web developer. By the way, if you found this video helpful at all, really appreciate it if you can click that like button, subscribe button, bell icon, all that good stuff. All right, so I mentioned in the beginning of the video that I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to make your own website that's budget friendly. Well, I want to break down 3 big ideas for you. The first trick or first tip or recommendation is to make a list of your wants and needs based off of your goals. That way, you're only spending on the essentials that will help hit your targets. And one of the recommendations I always do whenever I look at a wants and needs list with a client is I'll essentially get a sheet of paper or on a Google sheet, separate or create a column for all of the list of everything that I want this website to do. Then from there, I'm going to cut and paste what goes into a want column and then a need column. So I'll just kind of move things around. And then from there, once I have a clear list of needs, I know exactly what I'm going to be looking for when I'm going to be talking to people or maybe looking at one of these plug and play services for a website. This helps mitigate overspending and massively reduces the budget. All right, big idea or big tip number 2 is that if you're going to go with one of these plug and play budget friendly website design software tools, then always consider that there are other software that complements those tools that you can also get away with to help your website, look a lot better. Great example of this is if you need pictures or video, there's websites like Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S, where they have a whole bunch of royalty-free high stock visuals that you can use and incorporate into your website. And if your options are limited on a website like Pexels, then there are platforms where you can actually pay a subscription to get higher quality stuff like iStock Photo or Storyblocks. All right, and big tip number 3 is specifically if you do decide to go and hire a web design agency. I need to let you know now, the art of negotiation is key, especially when you're watching your budget. And the idea here and what I recommend is to be completely upfront with the amount of money that you have to spend right from the start. And the other piece of this too is look for flexible ways to pay, like break down maybe a deposit and then installment payments over a certain amount of time, or maybe break down your project into different chunks and then work out a deal based off of separating all of these pieces to inevitably bring your site together over a given amount of time when you finally do have the budget to piece the whole website together. Look, the bottom line here is having clear goals between you and the agency that you hire means that you're not only going to get top-notch work, but you also won't be compromising on any of your finances.